Hello, everybody. This is Ruben, Pod and Deliver. Welcome. Joining us today is, of course, your friend and mine.
Jacob Aguilar.
Welcome. And today we are talking about the book 84 Charing Cross Road. And before we do, I want to talk about this genre that's very hard to categorize. I would call it books about books. And there's stuff of which we talk about in terms of these type of books, like the Literary Almanac. I've had this for many years, and it's just the bestsellers book lists of the Nobel Prizes for literature, Pulitzer Prizes, Newbery and Caldecott Awards. There's this 500 must-read books, and it's just about other books. The top 30 history books, best two detective books, true crime, best classics, things like that. And it's a book about books. And then we come to this little gem. I don't know if we can see it here. 84 Charing Cross Road. And this book is true story about a woman named Helene Hanff. And it's just a series of letters, a correspondence between her and a bookseller named Frank Dowell, I believe his name is pronounced, or Dowell. And it is a breadth of time. It is an expanse. Some would say a lifetime of letters. And there's something about it. Yes, it is a book about books, but it's more than that, isn't it, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I was waiting for you to share what does this have to do with our topic, though? I mean, we talk about mentors and teachers and coaches here, gurus. Where does that fit in with our what we do here in this podcast? However, I think it fits in really well.
Well, I have an answer. I have my answer as to why I selected it, but because I've read this before and I was looking forward to rereading it. But why do you think I've introduced it to the podcast?
I was surprised when you first did, because I heard of it before. I've never seen the movie. I never read the book. So, and then I read it, and it was pretty meaty, pretty powerful. But I think after reading it, I'm thinking, you know what? There was this relationship between these two people. They never met each other. But I would say that the bookseller was somebody that she turned to with certain books, or at least he pointed her in the right direction sometimes, or he'd say, oh, why don't you try this? And he was into music as well. And so she was. So I felt like he was, in a way, her mentor in some aspects. And of course, I think he grew from her as well, though. She had a lot to offer. But that was my opinion. I'm not sure if you feel the same way. But I felt like he just seems that type of person, even in his office, even reading about him afterwards, that he was a leader. He was the anchor of that story.
So to answer that in a sentence, no, that wasn't the reason. But I like your answer.
Ouch.
Actually, the reason why I went in this, I thought this would be a nice addition to our discussion with about teachers, mentors, so forth, is because in order to be an effective teacher, you have to have compassion. And this woman, I mean, I guess the way I could describe there's a time in this, there's a period of time in this book in which she begins to send gifts to workers at this bookstore. Not only Dowell, the bookseller, but everybody in the bookstore who wasn't in correspondence to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it just showed this level of compassion for people she didn't even know. But she did know one thing, that they were under rations, because this is post-war England. And because of that, she began this just sending them for Christmas, Easter. She found occasions to send them food.
Hmm.
And the level of gratitude. These are adult, educated people
Yeah.
with expressing glee, like children, over eggs, ham,
Hmm.
and tins of various meats. And it really struck the first time I read it how compassionate, what compassion does to people, especially when you don't know them, because you have no gain for yourself. There's nothing in it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, she definitely touched me. Also, I felt like she affected his behavior with, besides the what you're sharing, which is a big piece of the book, of her giving to this group of people, but also she changed his attitude and even the way they addressed each other. I would say maybe after 6 or 7 letters, you start seeing him unwind a little bit, and then the way he starts conversing, I'm like, wow, he sounds a little American. I felt like she kind of said, "Hey, loosen up, buddy. You know, we're friends here. We're gonna talk and we're gonna gab a little bit."
She really did try to, loosen him up, as you say,
Mhm.
early on, and he's did
Yeah.
slowly warm up. But there's something about his personality. It's like the English humility is so comforting here
Yeah.
through this character. It's like a nice warm bath, where she would jab at him good naturedly, like, "Come on, Frankie boy, here's this prim, almost stuffy Englishman telling her about the books he's about to send her. Oh, we are sorry we don't have that, but please forgive me. Come on, Frankie boy." And he would say, "Sorry, we don't have that. I'm sorry." Like
Right.
it's his fault.
Right.
And it's just so refreshing to see that kind of
Yeah.
humility.
And it seemed like people in the store loved him, and they would even write her and say, "He seemed a little stuffy, but you know what? He's a great guy." And so, of course, in their own words, because they don't talk like me, but it was refreshing to see how much respect they had for him, and they wanted her to know, "Hey, we know you guys are having this relationship in a way. It's this correspondence, and they're very, at least he is very. It's very important to him. You could tell, because even his wife talks about it afterwards, right? That this was an important correspondence for him. He enjoyed it, and he grew from it. And then the people in the office obviously knew that that was a special relationship. And so I just felt like every people besides those two benefited from that correspondence for sure.
Absolutely. So we talk about him, humble, uh, became, well, had a sense of humor at times,
Mhm.
well loved. Let's talk about her for a moment.
Sure.
In thinking through her character, instead of giving you an adjective about her, I'm going to say this about Helene Hanff: ask assertively, give cheerfully.
Hmm.
And so I really learned from that. Like, this woman, she wanted she wanted those books.
Yeah, she did. She did it.
She said, get them to me, please, but get them, please, but get them here." And she made those people work.
Yeah.
Make no mistake. However, she also gave. She
Hmm.
also gave cheerfully. It was as strong. And that, to me, back to the teaching.
Hmm.
This is what a teacher does:
Yeah.
ask assertively, give cheerfully, don't back down. 1-2 punch, just as strong as the other.
Right.
And that's very hard. It's easier said than done.
I think within that, within that is also personality, because for her to do that, she's showing different pieces of herself. Like even a teacher, like you will see sometimes a teacher is much beloved, right? And you might say, "Wow, that's a pretty strict teacher. That's teacher doesn't play games," but the kids know. Oh no, yeah, I mean, we want to earn his praise, right? We want to earn his respect, or her respect if
Right.
it's a female teacher. And so it's like they do everything they can to please her, even though she might come out. And I remember a teacher at my old school, and I wonder if I could say his name, but anyway, he had his kids. Boy, they came in line, and this is middle school. They saw on the board what they had to do right away, and everything was organized. But boy, they would take a bullet for him. They loved him, and they would probably say now, "Wow, he was one of the best teachers," because he took the time to get them to the point where they were respectful to even his position, but at the same time respecting their education as well. And so I think that's a mark of a good teacher for sure.
Yes, this idea of being assertive
Mm-hmm.
is not easy. Like you ask somebody something, even generally,
Mm-hmm.
um, it takes some humility in a way to ask, because you might get rejected, and so that to me is a mark of goodness for sure, because she had no problems doing that. And in a way, giving is probably a little easier,
Yeah.
uh, because if you have it, you could just give it.
Yeah.
Um,
I know for me though, just to kind of tell back. I mean, it's dealing with teaching because I'm a history teacher, but I did like also the aspect, like you mentioned in the beginning, how it seemed like a lifetime of correspondence, but I think it was a 20-year period. But it was a very interesting period, post-war England, right, 49 to about 69 or 68. And so, it kind of touched me because I teach history, and there's things that are happening post-war, Cold War. There's talk about the election of 1960, right? There's the Beatles that's talked about, and even Frank's the bookseller in England's like, wow, I'm not sure what to do with this, but but it was refreshing to see that they were still in contact, but the world was changing, the world was moving on. So.
she taught American history and literature in a very interesting way, probably the right way. Like in one brush of the pen, she mentioned that de Tocqueville wrote that lawyers are running the country. And after seeing Kennedy and Nixon, and she mentioned a few other people, Humphrey, she's probably right. And it's just so capturing literature and history right in one breath, and it's interesting, you know.
I was blown away about her. Just, she's a New Yorker, and you could tell she's talking to and she's conversing with these English, well-read people. But she was right up there with them. She mentions that her own friends are like, "What are you like? What are you talking about? Like, how did she talks a different language? She talks a language of the great works of art. I mean, and she appreciates it and she understands it. She just doesn't speak it. She loves books. Not to, but bad books. She says, "I throw away the bad books. I'll get rid of them." But the good books, boy, they're with her all the time.
Yeah, and so and yeah, exactly. And you mentioned works of art. I'd mentioned a book about books. Here are the books she keeps going back to. She mentions and orders from the bookstore, just by way of interest. Journey to America, de Tocqueville, Walton's Lives. It's about John Donne, which he eventually writes a TV play about it and makes a lot of money, which is, in a way, if you think about it, she probably felt like she owed them something,
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen, Samuel Pepys, and Tristan and Shandy. So, that she has a love of literature, but specifically English literature, mostly prose, some fiction. So, it's certainly there's certainly something for everybody in this book.
But even with the literature she said she grew, she didn't care for fiction, but then she started getting introduced some pieces, and then she was send me some Jane Austen. That's good stuff, right?
Right.
Because it takes in a period, and so she understands the period. But so she was more, and I'm a lot like that. I'm not a real big fiction reader. However, I know there's some good stuff out there, and like her, it's like, oh wow, I love to be introduced to great pieces, and you could just tell by her writing that she's just like so excited to read her new piece, or her new book. So yeah, she was a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, it was a life, for some people it would be a life, the amount of years, just to get a perspective. The first letter appeared when my mother was born, the year my mother was born, and the last letter year appeared just before the year I was born.
Yeah.
So it's a friendship, even though it's through letters. It's a friendship, and without giving away the ending.
I know it's kind of like
what would you say is the one thing she would do differently? What would she say? she would have done differently in her life, at least in in regard to the relationship
I hope
with
I
that
spoil it by what.
bookseller. The,
Am I spoiling it by? Okay, I guess it's a spoiler alert here, right? If you're gonna read the book, I would say.
no. Well,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I struggle with this because I don't think this is where you're going, but I thought about it
It's
after.
not a big mistake. It's not a big mistake, but it's probably something she would have done a little bit differently in the course of the years
I
that she
would have
wrote
went to visit.
these letters.
I just feel like she would have went to visit,
Yes, absolutely.
and I feel like she was feeling that at the end, like she met so many people. I mean, in the writings, and she would ask for them, like, "Oh, where's Ceci? Right? Where's? Have you seen her? Have you talked to Mark?" So you're like,
Yes.
wow. She was connected to these people, and she really truly wondered about them. She didn't ask about them once. She asked a few times. And so I think, wow, if I was in her position, when you say you're going to do something, and you can see in the whole book, she's saying, I'm going to get there. I'm going to go and meet you. And then she had friends go visit, and they loved her. Of course, they treated her friends like gods because they knew her, right? Like, this is a woman so good.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was a fun part of it.
Do we still have you?
Yeah. Oh, am I out in where you're at? Okay.
No, I could hear you, but maybe it looks okay on your end. But we got what we needed to get. I just it was a great book, um, and
For sure.
it was good to revisit these people. I got something even more the second time around, and so anything to add to that?
No, I just feel like, sometimes you haven't read a book and you wonder why you haven't. So I felt bad about that, but at the end, it was so gratifying. Sometimes a book, after you read it, you go, I wish it would have went in this direction, or I wish it would have went in that direction. But here, I'm like, even though maybe, like you shared, there's some things maybe she would have done differently, I still think the ending was like, oh, this is life, and this is how it should go. And I felt it was gratifying. I was like, okay, this is right. This is good. And so I enjoyed that piece. And so it made me excited about reading again. Like, oh, what's the next book I'm gonna read? And I've been reading some books but not so much books like this. This is a different type of book. I don't even know how to describe it, except, like you said, it's books talking about other books, but there's more to it than that. So, but yeah, thanks. I'm so glad you pointed me in this direction. It was a fun time.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching this podcast brought to you by Jacob and Ruben, Pod and Deliver, and we will see you next time.